Yeah, thanks, Gillian, and welcome everyone. Good to virtually see you again. What I'm going to talk about today is a learning resource which has been available for some time. It's a collaborative effort from between University of Sydney, Charles Sturt University, Animals Medicines Australia, and the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment, as you can see there. This was developed out of a desire from a couple of individuals to be able to pull together all of the current knowledge in relation to antimicrobial resistance for the veterinary profession. You can see here what their mandate was, to translate the science around AMR and stewardship into meaningful and practical information that vets can call upon to make informed, evidence-based decisions in their daily practice. So it's been getting developed over the last couple of years. When I first had a look at this, I noticed it's quite a generic program. I will take you onto the website shortly and have a walk through it with you. But it was very generic and it wasn't really focused towards commercial poultry. Along with the appropriateness survey that AgriFutures did, highlighted that there's a need and a requirement for some background information and some scientific evidence-based information to be made available for vets so that you can make better decisions around antimicrobial stewardship. So out of that, we had a discussion and decided that we would develop a poultry industry-specific module. Sorry, a poultry-specific module, not necessarily poultry industry, targeted at both poultry industry vets and general practitioners who treat poultry. Now we're at the piloting stage. What I'm going to show you today is a sneak preview. It hasn't yet been published, but it's imminent. It's pretty much finished. We're just going through the final review process. It's been out for comments and reviews and feedback, so it should be getting released publicly very soon. But I can run you through it today and show you what's on there, and let you have a look at what we developed as a resource. One of the things that we did identify early on was that backyard poultry is a real issue for antimicrobial stewardship and development of resistance. We're estimating that there's up to 2 million backyard poultry in Australia at the current time. In relation to the commercial flock of 22 million poultry, now it's quite a significant proportion of poultry. And these are being often treated by veterinarians with little or no experience in poultry and very little understanding of their obligations for treating food-producing animals. So it actually became a real alarm for us. In discussions that I had in developing this module, I realised that the knowledge out there amongst private practitioners is really quite poor. And so there was a very, very high need for understanding of antimicrobial stewardship in clinical practice as well as in commercial practice. We've already got some materials, some guideline materials and training materials and a lot of good background information. You can see that the chicken meat industry and the egg industry have both developed antimicrobial stewardship guidelines for the industries. So these are already in existence and they're very, very useful documents. We've also got the antimicrobial prescribing guidelines for poultry, which is an Australian Veterinary Association document. And we've had for many, many years the AVPA's Code of Practice for the use of antimicrobials in the poultry industry. So we've got a lot of guideline information there and supporting documentation for veterinarians, principally in the commercial space, in order to make judicious decisions in relation to antimicrobial use. But this learning resource that we've developed, it gives good background information. It's an educational tool. You can get continuing professional development points from continuing the module. It's a free module. It's available to not only vets, it's publicly available, but it's principally targeted at veterinarians. And it is complementary to those other documents I've just showed you. So what I'll do now is just take you for a walk through the site. So this is the AMR Vet Collective site that you come to when you first click on the link. And it's a bit of generic stuff about AMR. You can see here there's sections here that we can go to. Veterinary prescribing support. We've got the continuing education section here, which I'll take you to, and just some good generic information to lead veterinarians into a bit better understanding, or a lot better understanding on antimicrobial stewardship. So I'll take you to the actual continuing education section here. Log in. Okay, so as I said to you earlier, what I'm going to show you here is a sneak preview. This is not publicly available. These modules that you're seeing here are all available, and they're all very good background information, good learning materials. And you can work your way through these modules. Each time you do a module, you can get a certificate as evidence that you've done the module. And once you've got through the whole 8 modules that are available at the moment, you can get your CPD points. So I'll just flick through one of these. They're all very similar in their structure. They all have a pre-module quiz, very short quiz at the start, just to let you know how much you might know. If you look down the left-hand side here, you can see the various sections of the different modules. And as you click through, you can see that each section has got its own learning materials. And then at the end of the section, you've got a post-module quiz, which I can click on briefly for you to give you some idea on what sort of materials are in there. So these are some of the quiz questions which you'll see once you've finished each of the modules. Again, they're not difficult, but they're just a bit of feedback on how well you've been able to grasp the concepts and the information that is in each of these modules. So it is really interesting actually to do these modules and do the quizzes and just see where you're at in terms of your own knowledge of antimicrobial stewardship. So I'll take you back to the poultry module here now. One more click. Couple more clicks, sorry. Okay, come back to the poultry module, which you'll see down here. We move into the module. So there is a pre-module quiz. And as you scroll through, you'll see that the way it's structured is a bit of an introduction from myself, video introduction. I won't give you that sort of information, but you can see here that there's YouTube video presentations. Okay, and yes. Okay. So that moves to the legislative requirements, which is a really important part for particularly clinical practitioners as well as commercial vets in terms of production animals. Principles of medication. So this is another section. It's another YouTube video section. Okay, so it goes through a bit of physiology, a bit of pharmacokinetics, a bit of pharmacodynamics of various antimicrobials, and sort of gives some background material on antimicrobial residues and how they occur and how we avoid them. One of the big things we've noted, it's been highlighted in the AIAS also, is that the vast majority of antimicrobial use is off-label, because label directions are very, very limited. If you go off dose rate or you go off species, it's always off-label. Once you go off-label, the onus is back on the veterinarian to be able to provide correct withholding periods and safe withholding periods. And there's almost practically no information out there on how a vet is able to calculate or estimate a suitable withholding period for off-label use of antimicrobials. So that's another project that actually the AIAS is starting to discuss, being able to pull together any information that is out there to give vets a better ability to be able to prescribe antimicrobials off-label. And the principles of medication that I've shown here gives a bit of understanding on how you're able to develop your antimicrobial withholding periods. There's some downloadable documents as well. I'll go through those in a bit more detail. They come up a bit small on the screen, so I'll flick through those a bit later in the presentation. but they're downloadable documents that can be printed off and kept at a handy location for veterinarians. The next section we go into is some case study scenarios. You can see here a number of people have been contributing to this. Amy Hitchens is a private practitioner, younger private practitioner in Melbourne region. Peter Gray, we probably all know Peter Gray, Alison Berry. We should also know, both out of the industry. And then Alex Mastikov on the right there is a fellow of the Australian Avian Veterinary Association. He's a private practitioner in the Unusual Pet Vets clinic at the Sunshine Coast in Brisbane. So Alec talks to us about prescribing practices in private practice. So they're all very interesting and give a really good insight to prescribing practices and the difficulties and the issues that are faced by practitioners in a private practice setting. I'll just flick through a couple of these. Okay, so sorry, I'm just flicking really quickly through this, but I want to sort of cover it all off very briefly for you. This section is Amy demonstrating clinical examination of a chicken in practice. Okay, then we can move through to the case studies. So Amy gives a case study about her chicken Margot, which you see here, which had a bumblefoot case, and she gives a really good, frank discussion about her choice of antimicrobials, and she does admit that she made the wrong choice at the time due to her lack of knowledge of antimicrobial resistance issues and the legal ramifications. So that's a really good, open, frank discussion. Then I have an interview process with Peter Gray. Okay, so Peter gives a really, really good walkthrough of a hypothetical case. Then we move into preventative medicine and how we can avoid the use of antimicrobials, the alternatives that are now mainstream. Okay, so very, very good overview there from Alison on practices that are now sort of current that obviate the need for antimicrobials. Now, this is another downloadable section. I've brought up some really basic decision trees for, I guess, non-commercial poultry vets in order to work your way through some bios of the people that have contributed to this. So that's the materials. You can see here there's post-module quiz. I'm getting a message that saying my internet's unstable. I hope you're still hearing me. And some further downloadable resources at the end of the module. So that's the essence of what the module is. Some of these downloadable resources that we've got, you can see here, septicemic diseases of poultry, and it's really very straightforward, simple, basic stuff to lead vets who aren't doing everyday poultry work towards getting a diagnosis and a treatment choice. The other thing we've developed is what we call these traffic light diagrams. Now, this is the traffic light diagrams are based around the ASTAG. The ASTAG importance ratings for the various antimicrobials. So it's a very simple one-pager to give vets some direction as to which are the most appropriate antimicrobials to use. We've also developed this one, which is antimicrobials that cannot be used in poultry. These are the ones that are not registered for use in chickens. So that's a really important one. The interesting thing out of this is that the 3 antimicrobials that I've boxed here in red, they're the 3 go-to antimicrobials that clinical practitioners use in private practice. It's just, no matter how many times you talk to clinical vets about poultry treatments, they generally defer back to these 3 antimicrobials. So that's really concerning to us, and it's a really important thing that we've got to push hard to change that thinking process that these are acceptable antimicrobials for use in backyard poultry. Other materials we've got here, we've got these what we call quadrant diagrams. It's basically broken down the main pathogens that we see in poultry science into the 4 categories of antimicrobial type, and then we link that to the most suitable antimicrobials for use for each of those. You can see here it's based around the antimicrobial as well. This is the aminopenicillin, so it says here that it's got good activity against the 2 quadrants on the left and some activity against the quadrant on the right, top right there, and no activity against beta-lactamase producing staph species. So really good, very quick, available resources for people. Acknowledgments, Joe Kern was the leader of the project. Alison, Peter, Alex and Amy all contributed fantastically to it. And we had a steering group of Jackie Norris, Jane Heller, Noella Powell and Kylie Hewson to keep us on track. So that's all I've got. Thanks, Gillian.